We're here for the second half of chapter 26 of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott today. Thanks for joining us here at the Caribou Public Library. I'm Miss Erin, and I'm so glad that you are here. So we'll continue with our story. And as you remember, Amy was convincing her sisters to help her out, create a day of fun for the girls in her art class to come to their property. So the invitations were sent, most all accepted, and the following Monday was set apart for the grand event. Hannah was out of humor because her week's work was deranged, and prophesied that if the washing and ironing weren't done regular, nothing would go well anywheres. This hitch in the mainspring of the domestic machinery had a bad effect upon the whole concern. But Amy's motto was nil desperandum, and having made up her mind what to do, she proceeded to do it in spite of all obstacles. To begin with, Hannah's cooking didn't turn out well. The chicken was tough and tongue too salty, and the chocolate wouldn't froth properly. Then the cake and ice cost more than Amy expected, so did the wagon, and various other expenses, which seemed trifling at the outset, counted up rather alarmingly afterward. Beth got cold and took to her bed. Meg had an unusual number of callers to keep her at home, and Jo was in such a divided state of mind that her breakages, accidents, and mistakes were uncommonly numerous, serious, and trying. If it hadn't been for Mother, I never should have got through, as Amy declared afterwards, and gratefully remembered, when the best joke of the season was entirely forgotten by everybody else. It was not fair on Monday. If it was not fair on Monday, the young ladies would come on Tuesday, an arrangement which aggravated Jo and Hannah to the last degree. On Monday morning, the weather was in that undecided state which is more exasperating than a steady pour. It drizzled a little, shone a little, blew a little, and didn't make up its mind until it was too late for anyone else to make up theirs. Amy was up at dawn, hustling people out of their beds and through their breakfasts, that the house might be got in order. The parlor struck her as looking uncommonly shabby, but without stopping to sigh for what she had not, she skillfully made the best of what she had, arranging chairs over the worn places in the carpet, covering stains on the walls with pictures framed in ivy, and filling up empty corners with homemade statuary, which gave an artistic air to the room, and did the lovely vases of flowers Jo scattered about. The lunch looked charmingly, and as she surveyed it, she sincerely hoped that it would taste good, and that the borrowed glass, china, and silver would get safely home again. The carriages were promised. Meg and Mother were all ready to do the honors. Beth was able to help Hannah behind the scenes. Jo had engaged to be as lively and amiable as an absent mind, an aching head, and a very decided disapproval of everybody and everything would allow. And as she wearily dressed, Amy cheered herself with anticipations of the happy moment, when, lunch safely over, she should drive away with her friends for an afternoon of artistic delights, for the cherry bounce and the broken bridge were her strong points. Then came 2 hours of suspense, during which she vibrated from parlor to porch, while public opinion varied like the weathercock. A smart shower at 11 had evidently quenched the enthusiasm of the young ladies, who were to arrive at 12, for nobody came, and at 2, the exhausted family sat down in a blaze of sunshine to consume the perishable portions of the feast, that nothing might be lost. No doubt about the weather today. They will certainly come, so we must fly round and be ready for them, said Amy, as the sun woke her the next morning. She spoke briskly, but in her secret soul she wished she had said nothing about Tuesday, for her interest, like her cake, was getting a little stale. I can't get any lobsters, so you will have to do without salad today, said Mr. March, coming in half an hour later with an expression of placid despair. Use the chicken then, and the toughness won't matter in a salad, advised his wife. Hannah left it on the kitchen table a minute, and the kittens got at it. Oh, I'm very sorry, Amy, added Beth, who was still a patroness of cats. Then I must have a lobster, for tongue alone won't do, said Amy decidedly. Shall I rush into town and demand one? Asked Jo, with a magnanimity of a martyr. You'd come bringing it home under your arm without any paper, just to try me. I'll go myself, answered Amy, whose temper was beginning to fail. Shrouded in a thick veil, armed with a genteel traveling basket, she departed, feeling that a cool drive would soothe her ruffled spirit and fit her for the labors of the day. After some delay, the object of her desire was procured, likewise a bottle of dressing to prevent further loss of time at home, and off she drove again, well pleased with her own forethought. As the omnibus contained only one other passenger, a sleepy old lady, Amy pocketed her veil and beguiled the tedium of the way by trying to find out where all her money had gone to. So busy was she with her card full of refractory figures that she did not observe a newcomer, who entered without stopping the vehicle, until a masculine voice said, "Good morning, Miss March." And looking up, she beheld one of Laurie's most elegant college friends. Fervently hoping that he would get out before she did, Amy utterly ignored the basket at her feet, and, congratulating herself that she had on her new traveling dress, returned the young man's greeting with her usual suavity and spirit. They got on excellently, for Amy's chief care was soon set at rest by learning that the gentleman would leave first, and she was chatting away in a peculiarly lofty strain when the old lady got out. In stumbling to the door, she upset the basket, and, oh, horror, the lobster, in all its vulgar size and brilliancy, was revealed to the high-born eyes of a tutor. "By Jove, she's forgot her dinner!" cried the unconscious youth, poking the scarlet monster into its place with his cane, and preparing to hand out the basket after the old lady. "Please don't. It's mine," murmured Amy, with a face nearly as red as the fish. "Oh, really? I beg pardon. It's an uncommonly fine one, isn't it?" said Tudor, with his presence of mind and an air of sober interest that did credit to his breeding. Amy recovered herself in a breath, setting her basket boldly on the seat, and said, laughing, "Don't you wish you were to have some of the salad he's to make, and to see the charming young ladies who are to eat it?" Now, that was tact, for two of the ruling foibles of the masculine mind were touched. The lobster was instantly surrounded by a halo of pleasing reminiscences, and curiosity about the charming young ladies diverted his mind from the comical mishap. "I suppose he'll laugh and joke over it with Laurie, but I shan't see them, that's a comfort," thought Amy, as Tudor bowed and departed. She did not mention this meeting at home, though she discovered that, thanks to the upset, her new dress was much damaged by the rivulets of dressing that meandered down the skirt, but went through with the preparations, which now seemed more irksome than before, and at 12 o'clock all was ready again. Feeling that the neighbors were interested in her movements, she wished to efface the memory of yesterday's failure by a grand success today, so she ordered the cherry bounce and drove away in state to meet and escort her guests to the banquet. "There's the rumble, they're coming. I'll go into the porch and meet them. It looks hospitable, and I want the poor child to have a good time after all her trouble," said Mrs. March, suiting the action to the word. But after one glance, she retired with an indescribable expression, for, looking quite lost in the big carriage, sat Amy and one young lady. "Run, Beth, and help Hannah clear half the things off the table. It will be too absurd to put a luncheon for 12 before a single girl," cried Jo, hurrying away to the lower regions, too excited to stop even for a laugh. In came Amy, quite calm and delightfully cordial to the one guest who had kept her promise. The rest of the family, being of a dramatic turn, played their parts equally well, and Miss Elliot found them a most hilarious set, for it was impossible to entirely control the merriment which possessed them. The remodeled lunch being gaily partaken of, the studio and garden visited, and the art discussed with enthusiasm, Amy ordered a buggy, alas for the elegant cherry bounce, and drove her friend quietly about the neighborhood until sunset, when the party went out. As she came walking in, looking very tired but as composed as ever, she observed that every vestige of the unfortunate fete had disappeared, except a suspicious pucker about the corners of Jo's mouth. "You've had a lovely afternoon for your drive, dear," said her mother, as respectfully as if the whole 12 had come. "Miss Elliot is a very sweet girl, and seemed to enjoy herself, I thought," observed Beth, with unusual warmth. "Could you spare me some of your cake? I really need some, and I've so much company, and I can't make such delicious stuff as yours," asked Meg soberly. Take it all. I'm the only one here who likes sweet things, and it would mold before I can dispose of it, answered Amy, thinking with a sigh of the generous store that she had laid in for such as she had laid in for such an end as this. It's a pity Laurie isn't here to help us, began Jo, as they sat down to ice cream and salad for the 4th time in 2 days. A warning look from her mother checked any further remarks, and the whole family ate in heroic silence, until Mr. March mildly observed, "Salad was one of the favorite dishes of the ancients, and Evelyn—" Here a general explosion of laughter cut short the history of salads, to the great surprise of the learned gentleman. "Bundle everything into a basket and send it to the Hummels. Germans like messes. I'm sick of the sight of this, and there's no reason you should all die of a surfeit because I've been a fool," cried Amy, wiping her eyes. "I thought I should have died when I saw you 2 girls rattling about in the what-you-call-it, like 2 little colonels in a very big nutshell, and Mother waiting in state to receive the throng," sighed Jo, quite spent with laughter. "I'm very sorry you were disappointed, dear, but we all did our best to satisfy you," said Mrs. March, in a tone full of motherly regret. "I am satisfied. I've done what I undertook, and it's not my fault that it failed. I comfort myself with that," said Amy, with a little quiver in her voice. "I thank you all very much for helping me, and I'll thank you still more if you won't allude to it for a month at least." No one did for several months, but the word fete always produced a general smile, and Laurie's birthday gift to Amy was a tiny coral lobster in the shape of a charm for her watch guard. That's the end of chapter 26. We'll see you next time. Bye.